Kevin's here, we can now start. Hello, everybody. How was lunch? Yeah? Welcome back. Welcome back. Can you please text your friends and tell them to join us, because we got a great speaker coming up next. You're not going to want to miss this one. We have a great lineup of speakers for you to dive into sustainable innovation, the big data opportunity, and the future of healthcare. We begin by taking a peek into fostering sustainable innovation strategies, and I am pleased to announce that Brian Peterson, the Director of Innovation from Whitespace, is joining us this afternoon. Some of you may not know this, but Brian actually is a fellow SFU alumni, and unfortunately he always got better grades than me, so I was a little bit bitter, but you know, Brian, I won't hold it against you. Anyway, he's a disruptive thinker in innovation, and as the Director of Innovation at Whitespace, which is Lululemon Athletica's in-house innovation and R&D team, Brian is responsible for creating the global retailer's strategy for executing high-potential, game-changing ideas. Please put your hands together for Brian.
Thank you very much. What a nice introduction. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good? Yeah? Good. Excellent. So I'm here to talk to you about how to actually develop and foster successful innovation strategies within your own companies. And we're going to have that conversation based on some of the work that we do at Lululemon, and in particular within the Whitespace team. Before I get started, how many people here consider themselves to be practitioners of innovation or work in innovation? How many of you would say that you manage innovation teams in some capacity, R&D innovation teams? Okay, great. So ideally, there's going to be some great takeaways for you out of this talk. And if you have any questions about some of the processes that we use, you can always reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer emails or take a call. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk a bit about Lululemon. Not that we have to really talk too much about it, because I think we're all familiar with the company and what we're doing. We'll talk about my journey into innovation, how I actually got into innovation and innovation strategy. We'll talk a bit about Whitespace, which is the innovation R&D arm of Lululemon. We'll talk a bit about innovation and how we define innovation within our company, and then talk about innovation strategy. From there, we'll talk about how we develop processes to manage the innovation pipeline within the company. We'll talk about the importance of leadership and culture, and then I'll just give you some thoughts that I have about innovation in general. What we're not going to cover, innovation budgets. We're not going to cover the partnerships that we have underway within the team, our organizational structure, and we're not going to talk about any new projects on the horizon. So just, it's good to know what you're not going to get, and that's what you're not going to get. So innovation. OK, so this is a lot about Lululemon. But what I really want to point out to you is really the purpose and the mission of the company. So we say that our purpose is to elevate the world from mediocrity to greatness. And this has always been the mission, the purpose of the company. And that has a really big role in how we talk about innovation and how we value innovation within our company. Our mission, our products create transformational experiences for people to live happy, healthy, and fun lives. No matter what we do from an innovation perspective, we always look back to our mission and our purpose to see if what we're creating is aligned. And so from an innovation strategy perspective, grounding the conversation in a strong purpose and a mission is really important for the work that we do, and basically creates a really grounding discussion for the business as we look to implement concepts to commercialization. A little bit about the company, again, financials and stores. We're opening a lot of stores across the world. We're now, one of our biggest strategies is really around globalization and expanding into the global markets. We're projected revenue this year of about $1.8 billion. So we're doing well from a company perspective. And what's really important to know is this has nothing to do with the budgets that we have within innovation. I'm not going to talk specifics about budgets, but I'll tell you that we run lean as a team. And that is one of the key principles I'll talk about in a while, which is scarcity. And scarcity is the mother of invention. A bit about my story. So as you guys heard earlier, I graduated from SFU. I worked for a company called Infowave Software. My good friend Arv here also worked there with me together. That was kind of interesting to see you here. And then I moved back east and worked for a company called Discrete Logic, which was a company that worked in the area of visual effects software development. So we did gaming software and software for feature film and television commercial post-production. We were acquired by Autodesk. And it was at that time that I realized how difficult it was to develop sustainable innovation strategies, because none of those companies, aside from Discrete for a very brief period of time, could actually innovate consistently. So I went to McGill, I did my MBA, and I focused on how do companies actually create sustainable innovation. And that was the work that I did during my MBA. And it just so happened that when I left my MBA, there was an opening at Lululemon to work within their innovation team. And so I've been here for about 4 years. So that's my journey. So Whitespace. Whitespace is the innovation team within the product group at Lululemon. So I would be remiss to say that we are responsible for innovation, because innovation happens throughout the organization. Our developers and our designers are innovative. Our brand and community team are innovative. Our digital and IT teams are extremely innovative. So it's not that we own innovation within Lululemon. It's just that we are able to explore concepts and ideas that typically sit outside of what other teams are exploring. That being said, we have a healthy R&D team as well that really focus in on research, like fundamental research on product, on human physiology, on all the things that we need to do to create really interesting products and experiences for our guests. And for those of you who don't understand Lululemon language, guests are our customers. We're heavily invested in science, in research, and we have a little bit of strategy. So this is typically how we operate as a team. We say that we create into 3 years, we talk about 5 years, and we dream about 10 years. And that's really how we manage our innovation pipeline. So we're fundamentally focused on what to deliver in a short period of time, but our eyes never venture too far away from a 10-year vision. And we'll talk about how important that is in a minute. We're growing fast. We started with 3 people 4 years ago, and now we're at 30. I should say 3 years ago, sorry. Also key to know, we actually don't commercialize. So our team is not responsible to commercialize concepts. We bring concepts to proof of concept, and we have to work with our inline design and development teams to actually commercialize the ideas that we have. And this is hugely important for the business and for the inline design and development teams within the company. The reason being is nobody wants to receive a bomb from another team. So we enroll our inline teams early in the concepts that we work on, and we do such a good job of that that by the end of the project, those teams think the idea was theirs. And that's how it works. These are some shots of the Whitespace Workshop that is actually located on Cornwall. So as you drive by Cornwall and Burrard, you'll see this big brick building with the Lululemon logo on it. It's not a massive store. That's our head office. And at the basement of that head office, we have a 9,000 square foot workshop facility where we have everything that allows us to do human performance testing. So we have an in-ground pool. We have a large treadmill that you can ride a bicycle on. We have a climate chamber that typically we test cold weather product, but in this particular case, we're just drinking beers in. And we have spaces where people can just meet and relax and create. What I haven't shown you here on the other side of the workshop is we have a whole area that allows us to actually create product. So we have every machine that our factories and our development partners across the seas have so that we can actually develop the same product to spec that we're designing. So we are able to, in this workshop, do human performance testing, understand how our products work in context, and then walk over to our sampling facility, adjust product, invent product, make new product based on what we're seeing from our guests and how our guest is interacting with those solutions. In terms of the structure of our team, all you need to really do is focus on the gray area. We actually have 3 pillars within our team. We have innovation management, we have advanced technology, and we have scientific research. I head up the innovation management team, which is really responsible for understanding what problems in the world can we solve or that we are uniquely qualified to solve into. The advanced technology teams really look for solutions to those problems. And those solutions could exist within our vendor network, or they might have to be developed. And so we work with the advanced technology teams to really understand how we can solve innovatively into those problems. And then underneath that, we have a whole research team that is 100% focused on researching. So really understanding what the idiosyncrasies of the problems are that we're trying to solve into. The spaces around that team really represent the organization. So we work with design and a team called Advanced Concepts. We work with the brand and community team and the retail and operations teams. We work with the inline development and the supply chain teams. So what we say is we're default open. We don't have innovation locked under an enclosed space that nobody's able to access. We are default open. We work with our teams in order to ensure that the concepts that we're working on are brand relevant. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. These are the skills that we actually have within the team at a high level. So we have everything from sports technology to analytics. We have an architect that works with us. We have neuromechanics. We have biomedical engineering. We have a full gamut of skills that we draw upon as we start to solve into some of the problems that we're looking into solving. Here's a bit of what we've done that you can actually see in our stores today. So has everybody experienced Silverescent or the embedded silver products within our, right? Of course you have. So basically a solution whereby we've actually woven a silver thread or silver yarn into our garments in order to deal with odor. So silver is an antimicrobial agent. And so we've worked out ways to actually embed silver into our products so that we can kill the odor-causing bacteria that is left on your nasty gym shirt and as you leave it in your bag. So this whole silver line of products is something we've been involved in. A bunch of matte architecture. If you go into the Robson Street store, you'll see a concept called the joinery, which is a men's concept for personalizing shorts, where you can actually take a custom liner and a custom pair of shorts, and we can actually customize that solution for you. A few years back, we did a heart rate monitor bra. We've done a bunch of work in compression. So these are all solutions that we've worked on in the near term. So innovation. This is how we define innovation within our group. So we say that innovation is about solving problems that people care about to unlock net new value and sustain behavior change. Simply put, it's really about creating new and sustainable value. That's really what we're about. And we distinguish this from novelty, which is valuable, but not necessarily sustainable. We tend not to get involved in projects or in work that we would say is novel, really ensuring that we're focusing on the long-term value creation of our guests. How many of you who work in innovation have ever had the Mayday call, where things just are kind of getting real in the markets, and your board of directors or your senior leadership team says, "Okay, guys, we need to innovate. Got to innovate now. Got to come up with something exactly. Like, got to move now. We got to create something." This is not the foundation for a successful innovation team. So what we say is innovation is really a muscle. It's something that you invest in and that you have to nurture over a long period of time. So a lot of the work that we've done previously is work that's taken years to come to market with. And a lot of the really disruptive concepts that we're working on, we're just going to be releasing into the market in the next year to 2 years. So we're a team that's been about 3 years old. So it's taken us 3 years to actually get into innovations that we consider disruptive or market changing. And that's the kind of investment that we have from our leadership team and from the business in order to do the work that we do. And this is a key point, because if you go into building an innovation team and expect value out of the gate, you're not going to be set up for success. So what's the strategy? So innovation strategy is really about developing the competencies within an innovation team to actually deliver sustained value. What it's not is the successful ability to respond to crisis. That being said, we have been called into crisis meetings and we've helped out. I'm sure you guys have all heard of the sheer Luan issue that we had. We were definitely involved in trying to figure that one out. So we do respond to crisis, but fundamentally, a sustainable innovation strategy is one where you're focused on developing sustained value. How do we do that? The first thing is that we've set ourselves up to sit outside of the corporate strategy. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. We say, as I said before, that we're default open. And we've also successfully implemented a concept that we brand internally, build and tilt. And I'll talk about how that works. So sitting outside the strategy, what's really important from an innovation perspective is not to be called or cut into conversations that are really about how the business creates risk-mitigated growth. And fundamentally, that's what strategy is about. Strategy is about developing shareholder return and market results based on guidance, especially in the context of a publicly traded company. If an innovation team is fundamentally wrapped into the corporate strategy, then by definition, you're only ever going to be working on incremental innovations. So innovations that show incremental value over time. We have a mandate to offer value and show value in transformational innovation as well as disruptive innovation. In order for us to have the time to do that kind of work, we cannot be sort of be wrapped up into the corporate perspective. We need space and distance in order to explore concepts that we believe are valuable as a company or as a team. That doesn't necessarily say that we don't add value to the corporate strategy, because as we start to work on longer-term projects, we offer incremental value to the company. So if we're working on a particular project around compression, let's say it has a 5-year vision, but there's incremental value that we're seeing or generating or concepts that we're coming up with, we give those to the business. It doesn't take away from our ability to actually execute on a longer-term objective. We say that we're default open, and I talked about this a bit earlier. What that means is that we cannot operate in isolation from our inline teams. So as soon as we have an idea that we're working on, we enroll the appropriate team within the business to help us think through, create, prototype into. So if we're working on a compression project, for example, we might have an insight that we think is really valuable for our guest. As soon as we know that that's going to affect the men's team or the women's team, we'll enroll them early, and they'll be part of the innovation process along with us. We don't have the budgets, the time, and our organization's far too small for us to develop a concept in isolation and then hand it off to an inline team to commercialize. And the inline teams have their own strategies. They have their own delivery plans, and they have their own timeframes that they're working under. So we have to get into their agenda versus them have to deal with our agenda. And that's a key piece of how we work within our business. Build and tilt. The way we do this, the way we enroll an inline team into the concepts that we're working on, is we build them up. So we might have an initial insight, and we spend a lot of time developing that insight, doing the research to understand what that unique value proposition is, building the evidence that that value proposition is valuable from a guest perspective, sustainable from an innovation perspective, and has the opportunity to shift the business in a meaningful way. And as we build that evidence up, we're enrolling the business constantly, working with the men's team, working with the women's team to ensure that they understand the potential value of that project, of that idea. And that might mean 2%, 5% of their time over a month or 2 months or 3 months. But then all of a sudden, when they really get the potential of the concept, they start to take ownership of it. They start to drive the direction of the concept. They start to add fundamental value to that concept. And before you know it, that concept's actually tilted into the business. So the concept of build and tilt is simply building up the concept, enrolling the business around the value of that project, and having it naturally tilt into that business. And that can be a year long, it can be 2 years long. It really depends on the concept that we're working on. So the process. As I said before, we play in incremental, transformational, and disruptive innovation. So that means we develop value incrementally, so it could be just a unique point of view on an existing product, or we might be working in something more transformational. So it might be a fundamental product, a new product to the business, which we would call transformational. Or it could be disruptive. A disruptive concept has a potential, in our definition, to disrupt the competitive market. So that means our competition starts to react differently to us because of that innovation. So we work in all of those three paradigms with the consistent goal, whether it's incremental, transformational, or disruptive, with a consistent goal to work towards a technical epiphany. An epiphany is defined as a perception of the essential nature or meaning of something. In our world, a technical epiphany is a concept, a project, a product that leads to the radical change in meaning of something. So a good example of a technical epiphany is actually the yoga pants that we create. So back in the day when we developed the first yoga pant, it was solving into this idea of yoga, a great product that made women look great and feel great in the context of a studio sport like yoga. But women have completely shifted the meaning of that product. They wear it as a fashion item. They wear it not only in the gym, but outside of the gym, in the studio, out of the studio. The fundamental meaning of that product has changed. And that's a benchmark, that's a bar for us to solve into every time. There's a great body of work written by Roberto Vergananti, and he actually is the one who coined the concept of technical epiphany. And for those of you who work in this area, I would encourage you to look into that. It's an HBR article. Definitely read it. It's a phenomenal understanding of how to create innovative product. And we use this as a standard within our own concepts. I'm not going to explain it too much here, but it's definitely worth looking into. So once we have an idea, a new concept that we want to create, we spend a lot of time developing the unique point of view. What is the unique value that this concept idea actually has to offer? We find the gaps. So where in the market does this not exist and why doesn't it exist? We create a hypothesis that we can solve into and test into. And then we develop and build the concept, eventually tilting it into the business. So if you were to map that out in terms of a process, this is a bit misleading because it's not linear. But basically what we do is we, again, at stage 1, define the opportunity. Stage 2, understand the concept. Stage 3, tilt it into the company. It's a very simple model that takes a lot of time, effort, and work. It kind of actually shows up like that. It's an iterative process whereby we bounce in and out of invention, orientation, design. We get things wrong. We screw it up. We go back to design again. We go back to hypothesis again. We piss off our inline partners. We find other inline partners. It's not clean, but it works. And the idea at all stages is to understand what it is that you're actually developing from a unique value perspective. What is that unique point of view that you're trying to create in the world? So I'm going to show you a quick video on how that works, or not necessarily how it works, but the outcome of a process like this.
Compression is quite a popular technology, and there's a lot of claims out there in relation to compression, and it's quite confusing to people. So it's no wonder that people just use the same thing for everything. However, we think that you should use a different kind of compression for training, a different kind of compression for racing, and a different kind of compression for recovering. Tight Stuff, as a compression technology, is really optimized for the training part of your preparation. The driving philosophy behind Tight Stuff is about engineering sensation. One of the things that we found to be universal is that everyone we speak to that likes to wear compression talks about how they like the way it feels. Feeling fast is really about that direct sensation of how the muscle is compressed and what that's telling the brain about what it's capable of doing.
From what we understand about compression, there is a particular line, an amount of compression that a lot of the medical research has told us that you start to get a physiological effect. What we've done is created a level of compression that is below that.
Tight Stuff is about getting the right level of compression so that you're not protecting your body, you're allowing it to be exposed to the body's adaptive response to that training so that you get fitter, faster, and stronger.
So the unique point of view in that video was simply this, that recovery compression interferes with your body's ability to naturally recover from exercise. And in interfering in that recovery, you offload the work that your body has to do to repair itself. If we could just give you the proprioceptive benefits of compression, so how it feels, but not interfere with that process, you get stronger faster. So a unique point of view, we commercialized the product. It's the basis of our men's compression pant today in our stores. But the fundamental impact of that project was a lot bigger than that. Based on this project, we've actually re-engineered how we educate on our women's pants or women's tights. So now when you go into our stores and you go in and you ask for the Wonder Under or the Align pant, you'll be educated on how that pant makes you feel. Oh, that makes you feel hugged. That makes you feel held in. That makes you feel fast. So it actually creates the foundation of education for our stores when it comes to our core product line. Just really briefly, so we can have all these amazing processes, and we can have all of the ways of working that fundamentally allow us to do what we do. But in an organization, if you don't have leadership and if you don't have a culture that supports innovation, you're kind of left dry. So we say, from our perspective, that leadership is fundamental to how we operate. The innovation mandate is driven from the top, so from the CEO's office, but we encourage innovation from the bottom. Nobody owns innovation in the company. We, as an organization, define innovation consistently. So if there's issues in your innovation strategies at your own workplaces, look to how you define innovation, because potentially your management team is defining innovation very differently than your product team. And if that's the case, that could be an issue. Innovation is a core pillar of the organization. We have a 10-year BHAG, so big, audacious, hairy goal, to drive 50% of our profits from new projects, services, and experiences that don't currently exist. That's an innovation BHAG that we're actually playing into today. And Whitespace has a seat at the executive table. So our SVP of innovation sits with the CEO as a direct report. So we have the ear of the CEO all the way through the organization. Our culture is innovative, entrepreneurial, irreverent, and empowered. We've always said that this is the case, and this is our true DNA. So this fact in and of itself allows us to do what we do. So how are we innovative? Have any of you gone to the Lab store on Broadway? Here's a really, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's right beside Whole Foods, or up from Whole Foods. We actually have manufacturing directly in store. So we've actually shifted the way we educate and produce product right here in Vancouver. We're entrepreneurial. There was a space for lease in Whistler right beside our Whistler store. So we had one of our community managers go up to Whistler, and he decided to actually create a store called For Lease, as a bit of a pun. And all it is a community space. We actually don't sell a lot of product. But what we do is we host a lot of parties with athletes, and we do a lot of design meetings, and we shape-shift the store based on what's relevant in terms of what's happening at Whistler at the time. We're irreverent, Seawees. We run a half marathon every year. It's been going on for 4 years. And I guarantee it's the funnest experience you've ever had, because we don't take ourselves seriously, and we aim to put on the most interesting, fun, irreverent half marathon that exists on the planet. And we're empowered and developed. Chip Wilson, the founder, has always said that Lululemon is really a leadership and development company. It just so happens that we produce apparel. And that lives strong today. So we're all encouraged to engage in development, personal, professional leadership. And that really shows in terms of how we're able to deal with some of the ambiguities that we face from an innovation perspective. So some thoughts. That being said, there's still challenges, right? We consistently are challenged with balancing the short-term demands of the company and the long-term visions of the team. And the only way that that works is through constant communication, constant updating to the organization in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, constant enrollment in the organization on the mandates that we're working under. But it, for sure, is challenging. Team structure. We actually shape-shift our team often. So if there's a reorg in the company, oftentimes our team will shape-shift in order to account for that team, or for that change in the organization. Because what's really clear for us is we cannot work in isolation from the inline teams of the company. So we have to adapt based on how the company adapts. And so it's a consistent challenge and a consistent reflection for us. Are we actually structured the right way? Tilting. Do we actually have enough mass built around a concept to tilt it in the organization? If we don't, the concept stalls. If we force it into the organization, it gets rejected. So this concept of tilt is something we spend a lot of time on. And then I just said building profile. We're a small innovation team. We're very much scrappy, very much unlike the hives of the world, like Nike's innovation team. We're small, we're scrappy, and so we're always trying to build profile so that we can start working with our vendors and our partners a bit differently. We've done a great job so far, but it's a consistent job for us. And I deliberately did not put budget as an issue because our budgets are small. But as I said before, scarcity is the mother of invention. So we're OK working with tight budgets because it forces us to think differently. Some guardrails. Define innovation consistently in your organization. Create space from the business, so from that corporate strategy to actually work on concepts that are important. Include the business in your decisions. Don't create bombs. These are these sort of fully baked ideas that you pass off to a commercialization team to execute, right? Enroll them in the process. Always reevaluate your structure and how you're set up to make sure you're doing what you can be doing. Develop culturally relevant processes. So we say that if we were to pluck Whitespace out of Lululemon and put it somewhere else, it would never work. We've structured our team explicitly to work within Lululemon. And so when I go on to my next thing or when Tom goes on to his next thing, we'll have to start from the ground up. And figure out your build and tilt paradigm. Closing thoughts. Innovation, muscle, not Mayday. Make sure your strategies reflect culture. Scarcity. Know that we're unique to Lululemon. And it's all a work in progress. So once you have that concept, once you have the idea done, just note that the brand is the final filter. So no matter what you work on, no matter what you do, you have to ensure that what you are working on makes sense for the organization. And so you're going to see some stuff that comes up in the next year or 2 years from our team and from the business that you're going to wonder, wow, how is this Lululemon? But if you think really hard about the brand, you'll know exactly how it fits. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Actually, they need to set up the panel for the next panel session. So if you wouldn't mind just staying on, I have a question for you. And then
sure.
For anyone in the front row that I was just wondering, what's your most favorite project that you've worked on at Lululemon so far?
My most favorite project that I worked on.
Or something you're proud of.
That's a tough one. I think one of the most interesting is the joinery out of our Robson store. The reason being is because that was something we spun up within 6 months. So idea to implementation within a store in 6 months because we wanted to validate a hypothesis that was related to a completely different project that isn't actually released yet. So that's sort of like a project in disguise that, so not to allude to anything, but take a look at the joinery and know that there's a lot of thinking behind that.
Is there anything that you guys have launched internally or worked on internally that didn't make it to commercial stage?
Yes.
And are you okay to share that, what it was? And
there's a few, and I would probably say not.
Aww.
But I would say that failure happens all the time in our business. And what we say is we can kill a project at any time. So it doesn't matter what stage of the process we're in. It's the right of anybody in the team and in the company to actually challenge that concept. We have to defend the stuff that we're working on and ensure that the business understands the value. And if we can't defend that, or if the business decides that it's not relevant, then we take the appropriate measures.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure having you here today. One last round of applause for Brian. Thank you.